I got him.
You think we're stupid? Get your hands out or I'm gonna tase you.
Yes.
All right.
All right, let me show you what you've got here. Everything's been packaged properly. These are your 2 grenades, 3 seconds, 3-second fuse. And this here is the .22 with a suppressor. This thing will punch through plywood. Oh yeah, I like it a lot. No fingerprints on it, right? A quiet highway rest stop along Interstate 95 in New Hampshire. A weapons deal unfolding in the silence of the early morning. Military-grade grenades, an AK-47 rifle, a suppressed handgun. The buyer? A man with a detailed plan to assassinate 4 high-ranking government officials. The seller? An undercover FBI agent with 23 years of experience. This is the story of an undercover operation that stopped a domestic terrorist attack before it was too late. In the fall of 2015, an FBI agent with the Boston Joint Terrorism Task Force received a call no one expected. A cooperating witness was being held in custody down in Baltimore, and he was making serious claims about an individual named Edward McLaren in Boston, a man who was allegedly planning to assassinate high-ranking government officials. The FBI agent flew down to Maryland, removed the cooperating witness from the jail, and brought him to the United States Secret Service office for questioning. Edward McLaren, 60 years old, a forensic investigator, a certified expert since 1984. He had built the world's first 16-track recording studio, where Aerosmith recorded their debut album. He had served as an off-campus advisor to MIT, a man who appeared intelligent, accomplished. But beneath that exterior was someone who harbored a deep-seated hatred toward the government system. What the FBI agent heard from the cooperating witness forced him to act immediately. Edward McLaren didn't just want to kill one person. He had a carefully planned list. The first target, Federal Judge Dennis Taylor, a sitting federal judge. The second target, Martha Coakley, the former Attorney General of the state of Massachusetts, one of the most powerful women in the state's justice system. The third target, Lisa Monaco, the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security in President Obama's administration, overseeing national security matters. And the fourth target, a name the FBI had never heard before, a social worker. This individual had been involved in Edward's child custody case, a case Edward lost, costing him custody of his son. And what fueled Edward's hatred even further? That social worker later married his ex-wife. This wasn't just about politics or ideology. This was personal. A dangerous blend of political rage and private resentment. While still in Baltimore, the agent called back to the Boston office, ordering them to immediately deploy protective surveillance for all potential victims, while also establishing 24-hour surveillance on Edward McLaren himself. Given the seriousness of the threat and the prominence of the potential targets, the case quickly drew attention at the highest levels, even from the White House. The directive from the top was clear: deal with this immediately. Determine whether Edward McLaren was truly planning to kill these individuals. Did he have a specific plan? Did he have accomplices? And the FBI needed answers fast. The FBI needed to hear Edward speak directly. The tactic was simple but effective. Have the cooperating witness call Edward from his personal phone, while the FBI monitored every conversation. The agent retrieved the witness's phone from his personal property at the jail. That way, the witness could call Edward McLaren directly from his own phone, since Edward had no idea his friend was in custody. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Tom, how are you? I'm doing okay today. The conversation sounded normal, friendly, but then Edward said something that made the FBI agents realize they were dealing with a truly dangerous individual. Is there a way we can communicate in an encrypted manner so I can say exactly what I want? That was a clear red flag. Most people, if they're just venting or exaggerating, will talk openly on the phone or online without concern. But when Edward asked for a secure method of communication, it showed he had thought carefully about his plan and was worried about being detected by law enforcement. October 13th, 2015. The cooperating witness was instructed to suggest the draft folder method, a technique that terrorist organizations had used in the past. The concept was simple but effective. Create a shared Gmail account. Both parties log into the same account. Messages are written but never sent, only saved in the draft folder. That way, no emails are transmitted over the internet, and there's no trail to track. You log in using the information I gave you, right? But you only write what you want and save it as a draft. It doesn't go anywhere. Okay, I get it. I like this method. Yeah, I can access it from anywhere in the world. Edward agreed immediately. The cooperating witness was sitting in a jail in Baltimore, but now it was the FBI agent sitting behind the computer keyboard, fully controlling every line of communication with Edward McLaren. The next morning, when the agent logged into the account, he saw an email waiting in the draft folder. When he opened it, he found Edward McLaren's detailed wish list. Military-grade grenades, C4 explosives, AK-47 rifles, a handgun with a suppressor. The agent immediately understood how serious the situation was. This was no longer just talk. Edward McLaren was actively seeking weapons of attack. Grenades, C4 explosives, AK-47s, a suppressed handgun. These are weapons designed to kill. Edward McLaren was taking real action.
Đặc vụ ngầm 23 năm, 7 giờ 30 đến 9 giờ.
The FBI needed someone who could get close to Edward, build trust, gather evidence, and most importantly, prevent him from obtaining weapons from another source. They needed a true expert. The agent selected had 23 years of undercover experience. He had carried out numerous operations around the world: domestic terrorism, major drug trafficking, public corruption, white-collar crime, even murder-for-hire cases. He had played the roles of crime bosses, gangsters, terrorists, white-collar criminals. He had sold grenades. He had bought grenades. A wide range of undercover assignments spanning more than 2 decades. A plan was put in place. The agent would pose as a black market arms dealer, an old military friend of the cooperating witness, Ryan. There was one small problem. The agent had never served in the military, but he committed fully to the role and decided he would make it work. The FBI moved forward with the plan. The location chosen was a gun store in New Hampshire, owned by an individual who had worked with the FBI multiple times in previous undercover operations. The agent had operated undercover at this location many times before, so he was familiar with the environment. After several initial setup calls, the first face-to-face meeting was arranged. So, you're the one who sent me the birthday wishes. Oh yeah, that was me. Thank you very much for the birthday wishes. It was a really nice day. Edward sounded comfortable on the phone, though slightly cautious. It was clear he wasn't going to go into specific details over the phone. The agent was establishing the initial relationship and letting Edward know he was open to doing business if Edward wanted.
Edward McLaren liked to talk, and in undercover work, that's often a major advantage. He talked about himself, a forensic investigator, a certified expert since 1984, the man who built the studio for Aerosmith, an advisor to MIT. But then the conversation gradually shifted to what the FBI agent actually cared about. Help me understand your problem, and then I can tell you what my best recommendation would be. Edward began to reveal more, not just about the 3 original targets the cooperating witness had mentioned, but about the 4th person, the name the FBI had never known. He started talking about wanting to kill a social worker who had been involved in his child custody case, the case he lost, costing him custody of his son, and who later married his ex-wife. 4 targets. The FBI only knew about 3. Now, they had a 4th. More importantly, Edward made his intentions unmistakably clear. He said very plainly that he didn't want to hurt anyone. He wanted to kill. Not self-defense, not intimidation, but to kill. The first meeting went relatively smoothly. Edward was comfortable. The agent was building trust. But just 5 seconds into the second meeting, everything nearly went completely off the rails. The first meeting went relatively smoothly. Edward was comfortable. The agent was building trust. But just 5 seconds into the second meeting, everything nearly went completely off the rails. 5 seconds, or less, into the meeting, Edward didn't follow instructions. He pulled a .38 caliber handgun from his pocket, his finger resting directly on the trigger. The FBI agent suddenly found himself staring straight down the barrel of a gun aimed at his face, less than half a meter away. Edward's finger was on the trigger. A slight squeeze, and the round would fire. Edward had just pointed a gun at the agent from less than half a meter away. The agent was concerned. There was no doubt about it. He was genuinely worried. In the agent's mind, a thought flashed at lightning speed. 25 SWAT agents were staged outside, ready to come crashing through every door and window, doing whatever was necessary to protect him. Because in undercover work, audio can fail at any moment. And if the SWAT team didn't hear him say the safety word, they would breach within 30 seconds. But the agent stayed calm, his voice steady, giving nothing away. Hey, let me... Okay, sure. The agent offered a reasonable explanation. He needed to check the weapon for safety. The shop owner didn't like people bringing guns in without his knowledge. A simple move to clear the weapon to make sure it was safe. And then the agent took control of the gun, placed it back on the table, and continued the negotiation as if nothing had happened. The agent set the gun back on the table and kept pressing forward with the deal. The crisis passed, but the message was clear. Edward McLaren was not someone to take lightly. He carried a gun, and he was willing to use it. On November 5th, a second meeting was arranged at the same location. This time, the FBI's objective was clearer: to take possession of the firearms Edward already owned. Because the greatest concern was that he could use those weapons to carry out a murder without waiting to acquire new ones. A plan was put in place: convince Edward to bring his firearms with him and use them as collateral for the purchase of new weapons. Edward arrived as promised. However, there was a small problem. So, it's a nice day out, huh? Yeah, nice day. So I tried. I tried to get my rifle. It's in storage, and it's way in the back, up against the wall. The FBI surveillance team had actually seen Edward go to the storage facility earlier, so the story appeared to be legitimate. But the agent didn't give up. Through careful negotiation, he persuaded Edward to at least leave behind the .38 caliber handgun, the same gun Edward had pulled out during the first meeting. The agent was able to safely take possession of the handgun, reducing that risk before things went any further. A final deal was reached. Edward would purchase 2 firearms, 2 grenades, multiple rounds of ammunition, several magazines. Total price, $700. Edward essentially agreed. He wanted 2 guns, 2 grenades, ammunition, and magazines, and he was ready to move forward immediately. The agent quoted $700, and they were set. Edward provided a down payment. The agent told him he would send instructions for the next meeting location to complete the exchange. But before leaving, the agent gave Edward one last chance to walk away from the deal. Edward didn't back out. "I'm killing traitors in the process. I'm committing treason." And he chose to continue with the purchase. After the second meeting, the FBI wanted to move quickly. They knew Edward intended to purchase these items, and he had a concrete plan to kill these individuals. The final location was selected, a highway rest stop parking lot in Seabrook, New Hampshire, right off Interstate 95. The FBI had used this location in previous undercover operations and arrests, and they knew it was a safe site, open enough for the suspect to feel comfortable, but controlled enough to ensure the agent's safety. Using the draft folder method, the agent sent a simple coded message. "Coffee?" Edward replied, "Yes, I'll meet you for coffee in the morning." It was time to act. A full, complex operation was deployed. Ground surveillance tracked Edward McLaren throughout the day. Drones were airborne, ready to provide overhead coverage. Multiple SWAT teams were staged and ready, not only to arrest Edward McLaren, but also to rescue the undercover agent if things went wrong. The agent arrived first. Inside his truck was everything Edward McLaren had asked for: real weapons, supplied by the FBI as evidence. Edward McLaren arrived on time. "Hey, you good?" "I'm good, yeah." "All right, I'm almost there, right?" "Yeah, my stuff is in that truck. It'll be right down there. We'll go together and get it." They walked through the parking lot, heading toward the truck that contained the weapons. The agent opened the bag. One item at a time was pulled out and held up in front of the hidden camera, capturing every detail. "All right, let me show you what you've got. These 3 AK magazines. I threw in an extra one for you." Edward carefully examined each item. "These are your 2 grenades. All right, 3 seconds. 3-second detonation. Grenades with a 3-second fuse. Enough time to throw, but not enough time for anyone to react. All right, so this here is your .22, right? With a suppressor, correct? Yeah. This will punch through plywood. Oh yeah. Yeah. I like it." Edward even asked about fingerprints. "I can't leave fingerprints on that. Wear gloves, like you said." He had thought through every detail. Gloves to avoid leaving prints. A suppressed firearm to reduce noise. Grenades for maximum damage. This was not an amateur. The agent continued. "You want to name them like Judge Taylor and the others?" "I don't know who you're going to use them on, but that's your decision." This was the opportunity to collect as much evidence as possible. Every item clearly captured on video. Every exchange recorded for presentation to a jury later. Edward carefully inspected each piece. The suppressed handgun, the grenades, the magazines. Oh yeah, all night long. And I can't just keep wearing gloves like this because I know in a few seconds about 5,000 pounds of FBI agents are about to come crashing in and end this. The transaction was complete. So I think we're all set.
This was the final weapons exchange between the FBI agent and Edward McLaren. The agent knew he would likely never see Edward again after this. And honestly, at this point, he was done with Edward. Edward had talked repeatedly about killing people. The agent was tired of hearing it. He was tired of Edward. He just wanted to get out of there. All right, yeah. So it might be a little heavy. Thank you. Got it. Thanks. Yeah. I'm done. I'm leaving. The FBI agent walked out of the parking lot, out of sight. As Edward walked back toward his vehicle, the agent was moving away. He could see the SWAT teams advancing to make the arrest. Edward McLaren opened the bag inside his car. Inside, grenades, a suppressed handgun, ammunition. Perfect evidence of an illegal weapons purchase intended for murder. And then, from every direction, the SWAT teams moved in. Multiple teams, perfectly coordinated. Aircraft overhead had tracked every movement. Ground surveillance had reported his exact position. And within seconds, Edward McLaren was fully taken into custody. The weapons were seized. The plot was stopped. 4 lives were saved before Edward could act. After his arrest, Edward McLaren tried to explain himself, tried to justify his actions. But listen to me. Why would you need those items? For self-defense? I guess you weren't listening to what I was saying.
How would they protect you? What kind of defensive weapons are those?
Edward attempted to construct a story about needing self-defense, about what these people had done to him, about how cruel they were. But the evidence was undeniable. He had purchased grenades, a suppressed firearm, ammunition. He had spoken clearly about killing 4 specific people, including a federal judge and high-ranking government officials. In the end, Edward McLaren was charged with possession of illegal explosives with intent to kill, possession of an illegal automatic weapon, an AK-47, and possession of a firearm equipped with a suppressor. Edward chose to represent himself at trial, a rare decision. The trial lasted more than 6 days. A man who had once advised MIT, who had been a forensic expert, now stood in court trying to convince a jury that he was innocent. But the jury heard the recordings. They watched the videos. They heard testimony from the FBI agents. They saw the photographs of the weapons. They heard Edward's own words about killing. The outcome was unavoidable. Guilty on all counts. I didn't think any of this was illegal. Oh, I thought grenades were legal. I didn't know. Weak defenses. The judge wasn't persuaded. Sentence: 25 years in federal prison. The FBI agent looked back on the case with a clear and unmistakable assessment. Edward McLaren wasn't simply someone who wanted to commit a murder. This was about attacking the system, attacking the justice system itself. His political ideology was the driving force behind his desire to kill. This was a true domestic terrorist. Not an ordinary criminal driven by personal motives. Not a single act of violence rooted in private resentment. This was ideological, organized terrorism aimed at the heart of the United States justice system. The agent had no doubt that if Edward hadn't found the FBI, he would have found someone else, and he would have tried to kill these people, and likely many more. Edward McLaren had no intention of stopping at 4. He would have continued. He would have obtained weapons from another source, and he would have acted. But because of the FBI's work, a brave cooperating witness, a seasoned undercover agent with 23 years of experience, the draft folder method used to monitor communications, 2 high-risk meetings filled with dangerous moments, and a perfectly executed arrest operation, 4 lives remain intact. Federal Judge Dennis Taylor remains on the bench, continuing to dispense justice. Martha Coakley remains in the legal field, continuing to serve the public. Lisa Monaco continues to serve in the federal government, protecting national security.
And the social worker, the one Edward McLaren never forgot, continues to live peacefully with his family. 4 lives, saved by a months-long FBI operation. Did Edward McLaren truly intend to kill? Or was he led into a crime by the FBI? One side argues that Edward actively sought out weapons, planned in detail, and even knew how to avoid leaving fingerprints. This was a real terrorist, and the FBI saved 4 lives. But the other side says, without the FBI supplying the weapons, would Edward really have been able to obtain grenades and C4? Was he just talking? And did the FBI turn words into action, then arrest him? 25 years in prison for someone who never physically harmed anyone. Fair or too harsh? What do you think? Was Edward a dangerous terrorist or a victim of undercover tactics? Leave your opinion in the comments below. If you found this case interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more dramatic FBI cases and undercover operations. See you in the next video.